Hi, I'm Muki Mueng. Welcome to On the Couch, Conversations with Muki. Today I have a pleasure of having a conversation with Thina Maqubela, a young South African black woman who is vibrant, innovative, dynamic, and dare I say, ambitious. Thina, it's a pleasure meeting you in person.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thina, what I would like to know, I've come to know you from a distance, from social media and the wonderful things that you are doing. But a lot of people might not have met you.
Sure.
So who is Thina? Tell us about who Thina is, where you come from,
Sure.
your upbringing and all of that. Thanks.
Sure. So Thina is from Emmanuel. Grew up in Emmanuel, raised by Magazi. And my grandmother and my mother. So all these three women are the women that raised me, basically. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. So our family, that was a business that was run by the family. So selling fruits and veggies. And that's the environment I grew up in. So I assisted quite a lot in that business. When you come from school, you're only assisting, basically. And I attended St. Teresa Primary School, Eccleston. Okay. And then later moved to New Brighton to stay with my aunt, and attended Newell High School, which is one of the township schools in New Brighton. So raised in a very Christian home.
Yes.
By my grandmother, who we lost when I was in grade 5. And then that influenced my move to my aunt, because my mother was, not coping with the number of kids that she was having to support. Then I moved to my aunt and stayed with her for my high schooling. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then being raised by women.
Sure.
So what would you say is something that is different that you've gained from that kind of upbringing?
I think it gave me a lot of independence. I learned independence from my family. So I learned that there's so many things that you can do. In society, sometimes you think that you have to have a partner to be able to do certain things. So I think raised by a strong woman who didn't have partners, it taught me that you can do stuff without, having, someone next to you, basically. So I think independence is something that I learned quite a lot in that environment. But I also think that it also, the kind of upbringing I had also taught me that, South Africa has a lot, of problems in general, especially when it comes to inequality. Because I think moving from Newell High School and going to UCT, then I saw the differences in terms of, there's other people who have, different lives from the one I have. So that upbringing also, when you reflect back, you also think about, the environment you grew up in and how, people live on the bare minimum and make it.
I'm now interested in you mentioning Newell and UCT and the contrast between the two worlds. And you went to UCT to study mathematical statistics. I struggle to pronounce that word.
Okay.
So what made you become interested in stats? As someone from the township, Newell, how did you come to know about it?
So I usually say it was by coincidence, actually. So when I went to UCT, I remember a few friends of mine who were just sitting at Skolweni and we were flipping through the prospectus, so UCT, and we were picking, careers, flipping through the prospectus without any guidance whatsoever. And I picked biotechnology. I was like, biology combined with technology.
Okay.
That sounds, fancy. And you realize, that people take such big decisions with little information, because that's how I picked my degree. And I think having an honest conversation with the guy who was basically the academic advisor during orientation really helped me. So most universities do this thing of the orientation week, basically, where you get introduced to other fields, even though you are sort of decided on your field. So I told him I love numbers, and that's where my interests lie. And he was like, okay, I think you should pick up, pure maths as one of your majors. You should pick up applied maths, and also consider statistics as an elective in the second semester. I was like, okay, I don't know what it is, but he seems to think that it's aligned to, my love for numbers. So that's how I bumped into stats, through having that honest conversation with that guy. I loved stats, and I hated biology.
Okay, let's go into. I want to go into your university life. Sure. As you know, I'm an academic, and you are also an academic. So, what kind of support would you say that you received from your university for you to be able to succeed?
Sure, that's a deep question.
Okay.
That's a deep question, because the reason why I'm saying that's a deep question is because I think back when I was doing university, that the kind of support that I envision should be there for students who come from environments like I did, I didn't think it was there. I still think that universities have a bit of a long way to go in terms of meeting the needs of a child who comes from the rural areas, the townships. So I think there were standard things that all universities have. So the lecture room as a teaching platform, and tutorials, and the ability to go and consult with your lecturer. But I think back then the universities haven't had thought about things like, how do we incorporate language, in the teaching of the sciences, for example. So I think the move now is towards that, where different universities are embracing the fact that, as much as we're teaching, statistics on its own is a language. So now people like myself had a second barrier of having to, understand English first, then understand statistics.
The language of statistics.
Yeah. So the reality is that most kids who attend rural and township schools is that they are dominantly taught in their home languages. So my teacher, when she explained parallel lines, so when I met, statistical concepts, I always viewed them as these abstract concepts. I didn't view them as things that, I could relate to everyday language. And I think that was the gap that was existing in the system that I personally experienced.
Yeah. Talking about that gap.
Sure.
Now let's go to Maqub's Academy, because I think I have a sense that the gap that you found in your own university education it was a springboard for you to start something, and fill that gap. So tell us a little bit about Maqub's Academy.
So maybe before I get to Maqub's, when I was at UCT, I spent quite a lot of time tutoring. So I fell in love with just like the idea of going and assisting someone, with a concept that I understand. So I was part of an organization called Shoko, where we would go to Ekaelicha in Cape Town and tutor kids from the township. And, I loved that, but I didn't, as a 19, 20-year-old, I didn't understand what that meant, what that love for, going there and teaching these concepts meant. But I knew that when I come back from that environment, there was something in me that was at peace. When you're coming back to do something that you love and you're feeling a sense of satisfaction. And I think it also took me away from the bubble, because UCT can be a bubble, or any academic institution for that matter. You are taken away from your environment. You are shielded by the fact that you're in a race with running water and so you tend to forget. So I think it also gave me the ability to go back to sort of an environment that I am familiar with, that I can always remember, oh, this is what home looks like. So after UCT, I then went to study in the US, where I did my master's. And there was something interesting that I noticed in terms of like the different education systems, the South African education system and the US education system. And I still continued with the tutoring. And, you know, and I noticed some of these, you know, challenges that I was noticing in the education space are not unique to South Africa. And, you know, mathematical concepts, statistical concepts are difficult to everyone, basically, but the challenges depend on the context that one finds themselves in. So I then, you know, had to decide after my master's, you know, what then, you know, I'm a statistician. And I continuously applied for statistic positions, right? So that meant that I was applying for pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, banks, etc. But for some odd reason, I just could not see myself, you know, wearing heels, and you know, being in Sandton and, you know, working in these different spaces and analyzing data. So part of the satisfaction that I had when I think about it today, I think human connection to me was very important in the work environment. So I felt like working in a statistical space will limit me from having that human connection. So hence my journey then went the education route. So to answer your question, I think my journey as an academic and also as an entrepreneur has been trying to answer some of the questions, or rather the problems I saw or I continuously see in the education space. So language being one of them. So in response to language, one of the things that I did was to start a project with my students. So as I'm teaching a particular course, I will then have students in that particular class volunteering to be part of a YouTube channel where we produce videos teaching statistical concepts and mathematical concepts in isiXhosa. Not pure isiXhosa, by the way. It's what I usually call English.
Yes.
So it's the way that, you know, people in townships converse, where, you know, the language isn't purely isiXhosa or purely English. It's always, you know, code switching between the two languages. So we did that project with university students. It was so exciting. You know, I enjoyed, it was an evening thing because I was working with a lot of commerce students, so they would generally be busy during the day, and then we'll just come in a space just like this one, have cameras, had a journalism student who was shooting us, and then we'll produce these videos. And we noticed that as much as we were producing the videos as a response to a language barrier issue that I noticed at Rhodes or the way I was teaching, it then attracted, because of the platform we needed to use, which is YouTube.
Yeah.
It's an open platform. So we noticed that the numbers were not matching the number of people I have in class. There were more people who were watching. So it meant that the channel was attracting, you know, more than a UCT student. You know, a Rhodes student. You'll find students from across the country. When you look at the data, at the analytics on YouTube, you notice that, oh, okay, this is responding to a bigger need of language. So some of the things that I do in my entrepreneurial journey are responding to problems that I see. So for example, I run a township digs. So that was a response to high rental, prices in Grahamstown, where you get an NSFAS student who's getting around 4.5 as an allowance from NSFAS. And that's rent in Grahamstown.
Yes. And
an NSFAS student in that 4.5 needs to rent, they need to eat, and sometimes send money back home. So, you know, so the township digs was then saying, can we take a township house, change it, and make it conducive to learning? So So make it look like the town digs that people rent, and afford students cheaper rent, so they are able to live with the allowance that they get.
Let's go into the residences and property, because you're also interested in property. You're also interested in finances. You've got Stokvels encouraging people to save. So what drives you? Someone sitting, looking at Thina would like to learn. What is it that drives you when you wake up in the morning, say that this is what I want to do, So what is it that drives you and makes you successful?
Makes me successful. Am I successful?
We can get into that, what success means.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I have looked at a career endeavor as one in which I respond to challenges that I see in society. So I've tried to utilize my skills to respond to those challenges. So I think what wakes me up is knowing that I'm aligned. So there's a sense of alignment in terms of I don't feel like I'm doing a job just for the sake of doing it, but I'm doing something that is responding to something that's bothering me. So as an example, you mentioned Stokvels. I've always been, troubled by the fact that, stats, continuously tell us that in South Africa, most Black families, are in debt. And you'll find that there's one graduate who's supporting a family of 10, right, with a salary. And most people don't have a culture of savings. So the Stokvel was a response to that, to say, is it possible for us to come together? Because I believe in accountability. I believe in having a support system to say, I know that Udok is also doing it. So as a Stokvel, Stokvel is not a new idea. It's something that I grew up around. So Umakulu, I would go with Umakulu. They had Sunday meetups or monthly meetups where, they're collecting this money and they're saving it together. But then we thought, can we make it more innovative? Can we make it modernized? Can Stokvels, answer different questions? So can they answer issues like, can we save for a car? Can we save for a deposit for a house? To help people, because people want to buy property, for example, and there's transfer fees, attorney fees that are involved, and usually that cash isn't available as just sitting there in the bank. So the Stokvel is a response to that, to say, let's, as a collective, can we help people save together to do all these different things. So back then, they were used for December groceries.
Yes.
They were used for making sure that, the basics are around, or, buying is dinner to extend. So we're basically taking that same model and responding to bigger challenges.
Oh, that's good. What I'm hearing you saying, that you are restless. And you were asking me about, am I successful? Because in my understanding, and my experience is that for you to become successful, you need to be restless. And once you are restless, you try to find solutions that will make or improve the situation that you're in, therefore being successful. So for me, success is not this big thing, huge achievement that you should have, and you've got so many achievements that you've, and awards that you've received. But I'm saying, for you to get to that, success is small steps to get there. And now talking about success and the achievements, you've had the Distinguished Teaching Excellence Award by the Vice Chancellor of Rhodes. You've had the Young South African Mail and Guardian, achievement. The Golden Key International, you're a member of that. So for me, the question then is, so what keeps you going in terms of getting these awards, and what do they mean to you?
That's a loaded question. I think what keeps me going is, looking back and realizing that the dots are connecting. Because I do remember that, you know, one of my restless moments was when I had to decide, you know, to follow this education route. And I didn't know what it meant, because for me, it was sort of like, you know, conflicting with the idea that I studied, you know, 5 to 6 years mathematical statistics. And I'm now deciding that I'm going to go work at an NGO, because that's where I started, and teach mathematics. So I had this huge conflict inside of me, but also other people wondering, is everything okay, sis? Are you okay?
Yeah,
you know, so I think the restlessness, you know, comes from the inner conflict of saying, there's this what, you know, you expect of yourself, or society expects of yourself, of you, and then there's your internal desire to say, you know, as much as it's not seen as this high thing, for me it is an important thing. Yeah. So for me, I think some of the awards, you know, mean that the impact that I anticipated to make is recognized by other people. I remember one of the earliest awards was the Businesswomen's Association Award, where I was recognized for social entrepreneurship. And it was a lady who apparently I did not know, who was watching TV, and they were advertising the BWA award. And she noted it down on her diary that next year there's this young woman that I've learned about, and I will be, you know, nominating her. Wow. I met her at the awards, you know. So for me, it's about, you know, I guess someone tapping you on the shoulder to say, as much as this journey might be difficult, because it is, you know, as much as sometimes you can be discouraged, just remember that the little you're doing, we are seeing it. Yes. So I think that's what those recognitions mean. And for me, the teaching award at Rhodes was sort of like a milestone to my teaching journey, because in the 3 legs of academia, which is community engagement, teaching and research, I pour myself in my teaching. I pour myself in my community engagement. So for me to win that award was also like another tap on the shoulder to say, the hours you've been putting in to make sure that your students, you know, are doing well, they've been worth it.
Yeah, and for me, the dots connect, Thina, because you're talking about the satisfaction that you got when you went to Kailicha, or was it Langa, you know, at UCT, you know, and I think the seed was planted there.
I think so too.
But we have an idea as citizens that teaching is not important. And you had to have this statistical thing and be in the office. But then when that bug bites,
and it does.
And it bit, you know, you very hard. And I'm glad that you listened to it for you to be able to take it on and look at where you are now. Now, finally, when we conclude, I just want to ask you about, there's a little black girl who's looking at Thina and wondering, how did Thina, you know, get here? What is it that you can tell that black girl who would like to be a mathematician, a physicist, a statistician? What would you tell that girl?
Continue. I think that's what I would say. I would say continue. Because I think the journey doesn't become easier. It doesn't get easier. You know, for most black kids, black girls like myself, you know, there's going to be challenges along the way. I'd say continue, and I'd say rest. And it's such a, you know, I think if someone said to me when I was in my university years that I must remember to rest, I must remember to be kind to myself, that I probably would have looked at them and said, yo, kindness, take me away.
Yes.
You know, I need to work, you know. And I think, you know, when I look back at my journey, I'm like, I think, you know, it's important. It's important to take time off. It's important to continue. So time off when you need to recoup and you know, re-energize yourself, but continuing is important, right? So taking one step forward, doesn't matter how slow or, you know, how fast you think you should be going, but just continue. And also seek out for help. I think my journey has been my journey because of people who, you know, mentored me, who, you know, kept me going. My mom was literally my alarm throughout my university life. And I think she still continues to be, you know, so she keeps me accountable, making sure that if I've got a commitment to wake up and study. I remember in grade 12, there was this guy who taught mathematics on TV. And my mom would wake me up to watch this guy, you know, and for some odd reasons, they played like at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. So, so having those accountable partners is also important in life. So that could be a mentor, an older sister, an older brother, or a friend, you know, but just keep on continuing. And also keep on resting and being kind on yourself. Because the kindness to me is something that I learned when I entered my 30s. That is, it's so important to remember that, you know, as much as you're trying to break the chains of poverty and whatnot, you're a human being, and you need to slow down sometimes, because I think the pace sometimes is so hard that it takes a strain on your own health. So it's important to rest a bit.
And be kind to yourself.
And be kind to yourself, yes.
All right. Well, there you have it, Thina Maqubela. Take it easy, but keep on going. One step at a time, you'll get there. Next time, we'll be talking to another guest. Take care.